Cleanup games are having a bit of a moment lately. From Unpacking to Power Wash Simulator, putting things in their proper place and removing dirt and clutter is a popular theme these days. And today's game is no exception. A Little to the Left is a puzzle game where players are presented with a messy scene they need to bring order to. This may be a junk drawer that needs sorting, some pictures that need to be straightened, or simply a collection of objects that must be organized, rotated, or arranged according to some unstated rule. The trick is that the game doesn't outright state what you need to do to bring order to a given screen. This guess the mechanic turns out to be both the game's strength and its weakness. When you look at a list of objects and say to yourself, I know how I'd sort these, and the game deems your method a success, it can be satisfying on multiple levels. You've not only brought order to a chaotic scene, but you've solved a puzzle and gotten validation from the game that the way you think these things should be sorted is totally the right way to sort these things, even as some levels have multiple ways of completing them. For example, the keys in this screen can be sorted from the least number of holes on the keyring to the most number of holes, but they can also be sorted by length. But because each screen's rules are bespoke and not beholden to a consistent set of expectations, divining what you're supposed to do with the items in front of you can be frustrating if it doesn't click. Sometimes it's as obvious as putting objects into a tray in a way that fits, the only way that they fit. Other times it can be a little bit more abstract. I totally understood when, say, I had to organize pencils in Roy G. Biv color order, or rotate 3 tomato cans so that you can see the whole print label at once. That's the kind of weird stuff I do in real life. But then there was a food puzzle about sorting the items by shape, and that took me forever to figure out because that is not how I would have organized those items at all. Luckily, there's a generous hint system and even a level skip option if you can't figure out what you need to do. I've seen comparisons between A Little to the Left and Unpacking, another recent game with a similar let's clean up the house theme, but the two games are actually markedly different. A Little to the Left skews much closer to the recent trend of the so-called wholesome games movement, with its cute cat mascot, low-stakes gameplay, and frankly, an aversion to conflict that ends up making the tension at the core of the gameplay actually more unnerving. Like, Unpacking is a game about its protagonist's life as explored through her belongings and where she ends up putting them in her house as her life changes. There's a narrative there, largely unspoken or mostly just implied, but a narrative nonetheless. Items she's supposed to care about end up hidden in her house, and that's supposed to say something about what's going on in her life. Here there's just an unresolved, perpetual tension. The player has an insatiable, arguably pathological, desire for order, but they also have a cat who seems to exist simply to sow chaos into their life and undo their attempts at putting the world right. And as a general idea, I think that's fine. The perpetual question of, why make my bed when it'll just get unmade when I go to sleep tonight, is part of the human condition. Cleaning up is a Sisyphean task. And more often than not, in A Little to the Left, it's presented as, that darn cat, always making messes I have to clean up, with no more thematic depth or heft than a Hallmark card. It's cute and weightless, and that's fine. But the game is so obsessed with minutia, which drawers knickknacks and gizmos get put into, and whether all these clovers make a symmetrical pattern, and whether hanging tools are flush with one another, that it starts to feel less like a game about cleaning up your house while owning a mischievous cat, and more like a game about living with OCD. Like, the game's not just putting things in a convenient place in their proper room like Unpacking, and it's not Power Wash Simulator. You aren't blasting grime off of walls to make the world less gross and grody. You're sorting rocks vertically with knickknacks because they share the same shape and color, or rotating plants until their leaves intersect without touching one another. This isn't cleaning, it's bringing order to a world that has none. At times, the cat feels less like an adorable little troublemaker and more a metaphor for the entropy that triggers this need to provide order or assert control. And I don't think the game set out to be about this. It seems to set out to be a puzzle game about everyday objects. And if you just take it as a puzzle game about everyday objects, it's fine. Delightful, even. It's pretty, and solving a screen is undeniably enjoyable. I had a good time playing it. But the sterile art and the game's belief that sorting the whole world is somehow meditative, it has a puzzle-a-day feature that rewards you for streaks. Reinforce that this is a game that values this compulsive ordering and sees nothing wrong with it. And I'm not sure what to do with that. It's undeniably a game that succeeds at what it's trying to do. If you're looking for a list of single-screen puzzles to solve, it's cute, it's wholesome, it's great. But I do think there's a darkness lurking just under the surface of the game that it goes to great lengths to not engage with, or even acknowledge. Indeed, in its efforts to be conflict-free and cute, it ends up fetishizing that very darkness and framing it as wholesome. And I can't tell if that conflicted feeling the game leaves me with as a result is the true intent of the work or not.